Hey everyone, it's Amy from Magic and Light Collection. You can find all of our products at www.magicandlightcollection.com. So today I have an image from an awesome customer named Haley, and she runs the Handmade Housewife. She has some really beautiful necklaces. If you guys are interested in looking her up, you can find her at facebook.com/thehandmadehousewife. And she sent me this image of her husband, which is awesome. First of all, because he's wearing a vest and a hat, which I could never get my husband to do. And second of all, because it's just of a man. It's a man picture, and I never get man pictures. So, so it's kind of exciting. But anyways, so I've already corrected a couple things in this image before I started this video, and one of them was the white balance. I just warmed it up a little bit, and then also I increased the exposure a tiny bit. So so I've played a couple things on this image. I've just been messing around with it to see what I can come up with, and not all actions look good on every image, so you kind of just have to play with stuff, and I still do that. I mean, I know all of the actions, and I still kind of just try out a couple before I settle on one. I tried out all of the all-in-one actions, and I wasn't crazy about any of them, and but the tones really worked. And let me just tell you that if you're not going to use one of the all-in-one actions, which will give you the contrast, the sharpness, and all of those corrections that you need, then you need to at least run Spring Clean as a base to get a really clean base for your image. So I'm going to run Spring Clean. I'm just going to select it. Elements users, you are going to double click on your icons and your effects palette, and just find Spring Clean. Those are alphabetized for you. So I'm going to check Spring Clean, press play. Okay, so you can see that it really corrected a lot of issues in the image. So the first thing I'm noticing is that the skin tones are just a little bit warm, and this action is going to behave differently on different images. So like I told you guys in your tips and tricks, you need to work through the layers to get the best image that you can. So the first thing is that the skin tones are too warm, so I'm going to look at the warm it up layer, and I'm going to click that off to see what happens. And it's much better without it, although I like it on the clothes in the background, just really not the skin. So I think I'm going to take off a little bit. So I'm going to select my brush tool and choose a black foreground color. Make sure that you're always working with the opposite foreground color of what your layer mask looks like. This is white. I'm going to work with a black brush. If it was black, I would work with a white brush. So I'm going to click on that. I have all this selected, and I'm going to choose my opacity of my brush, which is the strength of your brush, at about 20%. And I'm just going to brush it over his skin. Now I clicked twice, and so that makes 40%. But you just kind of have to do what looks good. Okay. Okay, so that's still just a little bit warm for me, and my suspicion is that the color boost is responsible for that. So I'm just going to check by clicking it off and clicking it on, and sure enough, that's what the problem is. So I'm going to actually take that whole level, because I see a little bit of distortion here. You can look right here, and I'm going to click it on and off, and that's not good. So I'm just going to take the opacity of the entire layer down to where it looks good, and that disappears a little bit. Okay, so it's down to 30%, 27, 28%. Okay, that looks good. So you can see that it corrected the oversaturation of the skin, but it still gives a nice color pop. Okay, so working through the layers, lighter, that definitely works. bleach, that definitely works. The blacker blacks is perfect. The contrast looks perfect. Really gives everything a crisp, crisp look. Okay, and let's look at sharper image. That really sharpens things up quite a bit. Okay, so now I'm ready to move on to a tone, and you can see all of the tones of spring are here. Elements users, they will be in your effects palette, and what I tried that worked for me was earth. So I'm going to click on earth, and you can play it on top of your actions. You don't have to flatten. And so I'm going to press play and let that work. Okay, so you can see that that gives a really nice vintage look, and I'm kind of a fan of the browns for man pictures, and it gives it that, like, you know, antique Legends of the Fall, river runs through it tone. So let's check where we started. There's the before, and there we are with Spring Clean and Earth. I think that Earth is just a little bit strong, so I'm going to take the opacity of the entire layer down just a little. I don't want to take too much off. I think 75% should be good. Let's just look at it. Okay, that looks good. That looks good to me. And then I also want to put a haze on here to give it even more of a vintage look. And I should say that the set is called Vintage Spring, but it doesn't have to be vintage. Everything in here, if you don't use the haze layers, is just a really great correction for any image, whether you want it to look vintage or not. And so this one I want to run a haze on, and I'm going to run Vintage Earth. So I'm going to select that and press play. Okay, so you can see that just Vintage Earth on 100% as it is really gives a nice nostalgic look. And so if I wanted to turn it down a little bit, I would just take the layer opacity down a little. But I actually just like it on 100%. So if I wanted to also try out another tone, just to show you guys, I'll take that Vintage Earth off. I'll just hide it for a second. And let's say I just wanted to try Orange Blossom. I would just choose that, and you can run it right on top. Press play. And so now we have Orange Blossom. Now, I think that that looks pretty good on the background, but it definitely does not look good on his vest, his jeans, or his skin, or the shadow on the bike handle. So what I would do is probably take this down just a little bit, just so I get that nice Orange Blossom look. And then I would definitely take it off of his skin by using a black brush at, I'm going to choose 30% this time, make it a little stronger, and I would just take it off of his skin and anywhere else that it looks kind of funny, right here on the vest. Go in a couple times to take that off because it's a little too much. A little too much right here. I'm actually just going to take the opacity of the brush up a little bit, make sure that I get it all. Okay, and you can see this little area right here really doesn't look good, and also on his jeans. So I'm going to take that off. Alright, let's see what Orange Blossom is doing. It gives the background a nice warm color, makes the tree a little bit warmer. Looks pretty good. I'm actually just going to take it down a little bit more. and then click it on and off to check it. And that looks pretty good. So that's how you stack the tones. And let's just check where we started. That's the before. And that's with Spring Clean, Earth Tone, and Orange Blossom Tone. And then we'll put the haze on top. And that looks pretty good to me. So we'll start from the beginning again. That's where we started. And that's where we ended. I hope that you found this helpful, and you can find all of our products at www.magicandlightcollection.com.